Welcome to the Messy Middle Season 2. I'm your host, Jamila, and this season we're having real conversations from women standing in the middle of a turning point. So, quick story. I went out with someone once, and on paper, everything about the moment was fine. He was kind, he was present, he was trying. But the whole time, my mind was three steps ahead, replaying old patterns, scanning for red flags, waiting for the shift. I remember sitting there thinking, why am I this tense with a man who hasn't even done anything to me? And that's when it hit me. It wasn't about him at all. It was the residue of things I never really healed from showing up in real time. So today we're talking about dating after damage. And I'm not talking about the cute version or the just get back out there energy. I'm talking about what it feels like to open up again when parts of you are still healing, still cautious, still remembering what went wrong. And I didn't want to have to do this podcast episode, to have this conversation by myself. I wanted someone who understands what it means to rebuild from the inside out. So I invited a woman whose work lives right in that space, the intersection of healing, confidence, and real inner peace. So my guest today is Nichole Williams, a mindset and confidence coach with a master's degree in counseling. She helps women overcome self doubt, limiting beliefs, and imposter syndrome. Through her brand, Her Inner Power, she creates spaces and tools that guide women back to their strength and authentic confidence. And let me tell you, she gets it. She gets the emotional work behind becoming yourself again. So, Nichole, thank you so much for being with me today. How are you doing today?
No problem. How are you today, Jamila? I'm doing well.
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having or for being here. Um, this is my first time having a guest on an episode, so I'm excited to see how
Mhm.
this goes, and I think that it will go, quite well. So let's just jump right into it. Um, let's talk about the very beginning, not the cute beginning, but the honest one. So let me ask you, when you look back at your story, what happened in your past that changed the way you show up in dating now?
I think looking back in the past, I have to remember that there was a time where I loved someone so much that I was willing to shrink myself in order to make them feel seen. Now that's a non-negotiable for me. I'm not going to shrink myself for me to make you feel as if you're seen. I'm your equal, but I will not be your stepping stool. So it's kind of like looking for those cues um that'll make me wonder, like, okay, am I gonna put you before me? I kind of look for things like arrogance and things to that nature, where my mama used to call it is I am man, hear me roar. A man who thinks he's so powerful that you literally have to shrink yourself and not be seen so that he can feel as if he's a man, just simple as that.
You preaching already. I'm here for it. I love that so much. I think that so many of us can relate to the aspect of shrinking ourselves for someone that we love for the sake of making them feel better about themselves. And at the end of the day, like, that's not really our job to make them feel better about
Mhm.
themselves. Like, we can assist, we can, do things that might help the process, but that's kind of the inner work that they have to do.
Exactly. That's something that you have to find in within yourself. I after that experience, I kind of realized that experience itself gave me a child, and my child is a boy, and that's the only person as the woman I am standing here today. That's the only person that I have to help build themselves besides me. If you have any inner work, we can work on it together, but I'm not going to do the work for you.
Amen to that. Um, okay, so let me ask you this. What part of what you went through kind of stayed with you the longest? Like, what's the part that didn't just break your heart, but it reshaped you?
From that relationship, speaking from a honest point of view, I went through a lot. I'm talking domestic violence, continuously cheating, using my son as a tool with other people. Um, Now today you can't play those games with me. I don't play those games, and it took a while for me to it took a while for me to heal from that, because it was like I degraded myself in order to make you feel better, and you still put your foot on my back and made me feel as if I was under you.
Mm, that's powerful. That's powerful to add the aspect of, having a son and knowing that you don't want him to grow up doing those same things to people. Um, and having him kind of mimic,
Mhm. A generational
what you
curse.
went through and put it
Hmm.
on somebody else. Like that's the thing about, having kids. And you know, I don't, I'm not in that position. I don't have any children, but um, I've been in a situation where I did date a man with a child, and he was a narcissist. And when it was all over, all I could think was, I pray to God his daughter does not end up with somebody like him.
Hmm.
And it's ooh, that's a whole nother episode for a whole nother day. But so you said that now that you've gone through that experience, nobody people can't play with you now. So is that what the experience taught you about, not just about love, but about yourself? Or
About
what else did it
myself,
teach you? Okay.
because I didn't. This was my first serious relationship with a man, so it wasn't my first relationship, but it was my first. It was at the end of my late 20s. It was my first serious relationship. I'm talking about moved in together, all of that stuff. Not We had been dating for 2 years, and I seen the flags before I even decided to uproot myself 2 hours away to be with him, and that's kind of a part I want to touch on as well. A lot of time we get so wrapped up in blaming the other person, but when you do that shadow work, you kind of you have to blame yourself as well, because you've seen the red flags. Your friends were telling you, your mind was telling you, your body, your soul, everything was telling you, but you still wanted to see this person for who you wanted them to be rather than who they were. So at that point, you also have to take accountability on your own actions, because you allowed yourself to endure that hurt as well.
That's such an important aspect of it. And I struggle with that myself, in terms of, I don't necessarily want to use the word blame, but it's kind of taking accountability
Mhm.
for my part in the situation, and what I did, what I didn't do, the red flags that I saw and ignored, and things like that. And I did start to, once I got to the place of, beginning to take accountability, the accountability did kind of shift to self blame, and that made it more difficult to heal, because I think that I ended up making his behavior, his mistakes, his wrongdoings my fault. And I think that's kind of like a gray, area, not necessarily a gray area, but a thin line. Like, you can't blame yourself for what he did or even for the fact that he did it to you. But you can, step up and say, well, had I acted on what I felt and what I saw sooner, he may not have been able to do it for as long. So you kind of have to let the accountability, only stretch to a certain point. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but so yeah, that's really good.
I think a lot of times as women, we get wrapped up into trying to, as a woman, you're it's so funny because as a woman you're taught that you're supposed to nature and nurture, but that's not your job for no grown ass man.
Facts, facts. That's it. A lot of men are looking for their mothers.
Yes. And especially if you have one, that a mother who, I understand pouring into your child, but there's a point where you have to let them take accountability for the man that they are. You can't say he's this way because of this, because childhood trauma goes on for a long time if left unhealed. So
Hmm.
at some point it becomes his problem. It becomes his it becomes, how can I say this? It becomes his responsibility to
Yes.
heal that inner him,
Yes.
while it's your responsibility to heal that inner you.
I completely and utterly agree. It's childhood trauma is real, and um you know it can absolutely stay with you well into adulthood, but like you said, if if it's left unaddressed, it's gonna seep into other areas of your life, especially relationships.
Mhm.
And if you are aware of the fact that went through these things as a child and you don't do anything about it now, it's like it's on you. It's your responsibility to, you know, take the necessary steps to address the trauma and begin to heal from whatever happened to you. And it's understandable that healing is a journey, and it's not gonna happen overnight. It probably won't even happen completely within your lifetime.
Mhm.
But if you don't address it ASAP, then it's only gonna
Linger.
kind of get worse.
It festers on from you into other people, and then that's how we end up with broken women, such as myself and any other woman who's been through a heartbreak. When their trauma festers into you, it leaves you. It opens up those wounds that you have, and then it creates the new ones because they've bled onto you.
Facts. Absolutely. You are on point 100%. So let's shift a little bit from the beginning to the aftermath. People love to say just move on, but the truth is the relationship ends long before the weight lifts. So what did that after look like for you? That space where you were technically single, but emotionally you might have been still carrying that weight. What did that look like for you?
For me, I can say I um I was emotionally unavailable, and back then I would isolate. So it would, if it wasn't about my son or if it wasn't about work, I was not interested for fear of being broken, but that comes with not being healed.
Hmm.
So it
Absolutely.
so the beginning, like the after, like after it had, I think it had been like a year. You're talking about a year and I'm still what 50 pounds down. I through the course of that, I lost a total of 60 pounds. I was still, a year later, I was still 50 pounds down. I was, nobody's gonna love me. All of these thoughts of doubt and just not being good enough because I let someone pour that into me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
So
when
even
when
though
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So even though he wasn't present, it was like the words, the things that he said, the things that he did constantly weighed on me because they still played a part in my brain. Because you have to think, all I was doing was working and taking care of my son. I never sat down to try to do any inner work to try to figure out, okay, what's next for you.
Um, that a lot of that is kind of like narcissistic abuse.
Hmm.
Because and a lot of people don't really give credence to narcissism and narcissistic abuse because you don't see any kind of like physical signs from the person being abused. It
Hmm.
because it's a mental thing. It's a
Hmm.
psychological thing. They get in your head. They like to
Hmm.
gaslight you and stonewall you and all those other, therapy speak terms that go along with narcissistic abuse, but it's a real thing. And like you mentioned, that kind of abuse can have like real long-term life altering effects. For you, you lost weight. For me, I gained weight, and I'm struggling, still trying to, you know,
Yeah.
get rid of it. I gained weight, my blood pressure went up, my face broke out, like, it's just everything. Just so much can happen to you physically by, the trauma that you endure emotionally, mentally, psychologically. So people got to pay attention to that and really not take it for granted because a lot of people also think that just because somebody cheated on you or just because somebody lied to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that that person is a narcissist, which is true. But at the same time, like, you got to think about what those lies and how that treatment affected you on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a psychological level. Like, if you need therapy after you went through this traumatic experience, it's not just, some dude broke your heart. Like,
Right.
something happened that you need to see about, and it might be deeper than
What
just
you think?
so. I just wanted to get that out of the way. So, um, let me ask you this: when did you realize I'm not dating the same way anymore? Like, something in you shifted, and the old version of you was not leading the way.
Baby, after I got done healing, after I started doing things for me and realizing, like, no, boo, it wasn't me. Yes, I had a problem. I had a problem of trying to nurture a broken man, which in return broke me. But once I got myself together and realized, now, look, okay, this is who you are. You're really that girl. And I look back and I'm just like, what are you doing different from the very first day I met you? I look and I'm like, no, you're right. You weren't for me. It was not by coincidence that you decided, whether God removed you or you decided to walk out, you chose the path that he wanted you to choose to free me. So
Ooh.
then I started looking like, okay, what do I need to, what about this particular man sticks to me? What do I like about this man? So once I realized, okay, this is what I like about him, tall brother, nice hair, money, blah, 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 like, smell good, but you don't have any work ethic. Meanwhile, I'm going to work at the prison every day. You don't have any work ethic.
Hmm. That
So
that was so good. That was so good. Like, it really does change the way you approach dating, and it changes what you accept. Like I noticed that for me, I attract a lot of men who who act like they have like this loneliness syndrome, and that they long for reciprocity and respect and all of that. But then you really get to know them, and it's like they don't really care anything about reciprocity, because all they doing is talking about themselves and the kind of thing that they want and what they want somebody to do for them. And and I can repel that kind of stuff now because I've seen it up close. I know what it looks like, and I know that it hurts,
Right.
and I don't want that anymore. So you really do. It really does change your outlook on dating and what you put up with. So my next question is about fears. So what fears or triggers followed you into dating even after you thought you were over it?
Fears of being hurt again. Hurt is something that is inevitable. You cannot avoid it, but you can, I don't want to say you can avoid how people hurt you. You can prepare yourself when you already see the signs coming. There's no, oh, let me make this excuse for him, because at that point I'm not protecting me. I'm just making it easier for him to hurt me.
Mhm.
I don't do that anymore.
Mhm.
You know, I don't, I don't, I don't, when I see something that I feel like you have the potential to repeat that pattern and it's going to hurt me, I remember what it was like in my bed crying, begging God, we're not going back there again.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel you. When you can see the signs and you recognize them for what they are, you can be more proactive in what happens next.
Right.
Um it gets a little tricky though when it's something that you're not familiar with,
Hmm.
and I know that for me, because of what I have already experienced, I'm I don't like to second guess myself, but I often second guess myself when I see, something that looks like a red flag. I might automatically like respond to it like, okay, this isn't gonna work, and then I have the fear of overreacting or jumping the gun or whatever, and then the fear of messing something up that could have been good, that my fear just got in the way or whatever. I carry that quite a bit, but um
So, see, I try to address it at first. I'm going to address it at first because mistakes do happen.
mhm,
In my mind, the second time is not a mistake. It's a pattern because I've already expressed to you, I'm not the woman who's going to tell you what happened in my past so you can go ahead and try and see how far you can get with it.
mhm,
I'm going to tell you it makes me uncomfortable. It's up to you to respect the fact that it makes me uncomfortable. If you do it again, that is a pattern, and I don't deal with patterns that I know bring me hurt.
yeah, yeah, I feel you on that, and I totally agree. um and I'm working on becoming that woman myself.
You'll
Like
get
I
there,
said,
girl.
it's a journey when you
Yes.
been through some stuff, but you don't want to kind of like live in that space of always watching your back and always being afraid and things like that. But it's trial and error, and it's just kind of a wait and see what happens type of thing, with dating. And but for the most part, I do think that when you see something that has the potential to be unhealthy, and you don't want that in your space, you gotta kind of be proactive about it and nip it in the bud, as soon as possible. So I'm sorry, were you going to say something else?
Oh no.
So let me ask you this. We talking about healing quite a bit. So tell me what healing actually looked like for you. Not the polished version, but the real life version. The
The
messy.
real raw uncut version of healing for me looked like looking in the mirror. I remember my mom made this comment to me and she was like, "Girl, if you turn sideways, I'm scared I'm going to lose you." And I'm like, "Huh?" Cuz I'm usually a thicker girl. So I'm like, and that's when I knew like I really needed to get myself together. Like my eyes were sinking in, things like that. Like it took like reliving nights that I buried in the back of my head, like journaling, remembering those nights, pulling out those why did you stay that night when you should have up and left. And it was disgusting because when it ended, of course, it ended because he decided while I was on vacation, he wanted to date someone else and we were still living together. And of course, like any other woman, why her, why not me, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm looking at it, I'm looking at those nights and those patterns. And then I get in the beginning, she gave me a phone call. And she was like, "Yeah, everyone says he did a 365 when he got with me. Such and such and such, but we all know you're never supposed to step foot in another woman's household. If you're smart, 365 means it's a full circle. What
Right.
three? That's not a change.
Right.
Um,
It's the
so then
cycle.
yeah. So then I'm like, okay, so you get to present a person that she doesn't know you. So you can be who you want with her. Um, I have to look back at the things you've done to me, how you've hurt me, um, the lies, just analyzing everything and realize, you know what? You're right. He did do a 360. He's the same person. And it kind of made me feel like, what are you missing? At this point, what are you missing? Do you want to spend your life crying? Do you want to be in turmoil? Do you want to hurt for the rest of your life? Do you want to be cheated on? Do you want every argument to continuously escalate? Do you want this for your son? And someone told me one time, they were like, you can't lean on your son because your son is leaning on you.
Hmm.
So I had to do that work and I had to cry. I had to fight out those feelings. I had to really look at it and say, although for social media it looked good on the outside, nobody really knew what I was fighting on the inside. And when I can't come home and my home is my peace, there's a problem there.
Yeah. Facts. You said something that really resonated with me. We kind of went through something similar in terms of um, when it was over for us. My my ex went on a vacation as well, and he I don't even want to get into the whole story, but um, he essentially, left me for somebody else that he had been seeing for months before we even had a problem. But when that happened, I was very much in the mind frame of why not me? Like why didn't he choose me? Why was I not good enough? Um and I would ask myself the questions of, you know, do you really miss him or do you miss what you thought he represented? Do you miss him or do you miss the void that you thought he was filling? And then you kind of have to look at the way that you were treated up to the point of, the demise of everything. Like, would you have really put up with that kind of stuff if you were really healthy, mentally and emotionally? And so I resonated with, it's normal to feel like you know, it, there's something in you that's lacking if somebody leaves you for somebody else. But you kind of have to think about the fact that the way that they left was extremely disrespectful.
Hmm.
And that's, you don't want somebody who's not going to be upfront with you about what it is they actually want, even if what they want is not you. Like, if he can't tell you that, then you're not really missing anything. You didn't miss out on anything. And another aspect of it is, I think that you mentioned this as well. They don't change for the new person. They just change the new person.
Hmm.
But the new person doesn't know who they were before they met them, but you do. So when you think about who they were before they left, consider that they kind of doing you a favor.
Yep,
You know,
absolutely.
they kind of
You cleared the baggage that I couldn't clear on my own.
listen. They took the garbage out themselves. So you kind of have to count your blessing, even though it didn't come in the way that you would have liked. It was hurtful and it was painful, so forth and so on. At the end of the day, you came out intact, even if you were broken. Like, you still have your life and you can still get back, you know, some things that you missed, or some things that left, or you can bounce back from it. It might take a minute. It's not going to be easy. You might feel really lonely in the process, but just, keep in mind that you can bounce back from all of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's times I'll tell you now where I wish I had someone, and then I look back and I'd be like, never mind. Mm-mm. I can come in here. I don't have to worry about arguing with nobody besides a 5-year-old. I don't have to argue. My peace is not disrupted. Life is going to take its course. You're going to have trials. You're going to have tribulations. You don't need anyone. I'm not saying every relationship is going to be picture perfect, but you don't need someone continuously adding weight. A lot of us live in that state, as I stated earlier. We're so used to being nurturers that we make it a habit. So we kind of we kind of say, this is the way, this is the way of life, when that's truly it's not the way of life, and you shouldn't have to carry all of that on your own. But you need to make sure it's not at the expense of losing yourself.
Exactly. Absolutely. And that's a great segue into the actual, like, healing work,
Hmm.
um and the rebuilding that I spoke about earlier. Rebuilding the parts that nobody, sees or nobody claps for. Um what parts of you do you feel you had to put back together before you started dating again? Or before you felt ready to date again, if you are dating again?
I had to be able to trust, and I had to be able to feel safe. If I do not trust you and I do not feel safe, we are not dating.
Yep, absolutely.
We're not dating, and this is a adult podcast. So before you're able to penetrate my body, you need to be able to penetrate my mind and my soul.
That part. That part. And trust me, I think that we're both, the kind of women who will not allow any kind of penetration without safety first.
Right. Mhm.
you know,
Amen.
if I can't,
Amen.
if I don't feel safe with you crossing the street, then you ain't safe with me nowhere.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's just so much, like, there's so much that goes into healing. Like, once you completely heal, you know what you're going to stand for and what you're not going to stand for. Like, it's just like, I'm not going down that dark road again. Like, it took me too long to get back up.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you, you know, are in that process of rebuilding, and you know how hard it is to rebuild, and you are familiar with the steps that it takes and how long it takes, you don't want to go through that again. Like, I think that, when you do open yourself back up to dating, of course, there's always that possibility that, hurt will occur, but you're going into it with more knowledge of how to handle it should it come up. Um, but yeah, nobody wants to, have to climb their way back up to the top after falling like that. Again, that's traumatic. And if you haven't, for anybody who's listening, if you've never been through that, consider yourself blessed, because it's not easy. It's not fun, and nobody deserves it at the end of the day.
You have to know your worth. And if you don't know it, you have to sit down with yourself and learn it.
Yep. Or with a therapist.
Yep.
So you mentioned safety, right?
Mhm.
And so I want to ask what safety looks like for you now when somebody new shows up. And, we're talking emotional safety, spiritual safety, nervous system safety, all of it. What does it look
All of the safeties.
like? All of the things. Like, what does it look like for
All of the safeties, especially with my neurological system, because I have the tendency, which I'm a human, I'm still working on it. I will go from 0 to 10 really, really quick, especially if I do not feel protected or if I feel like you are taking what I'm saying and using it for your benefit. I don't need that.
you? Mm-hmm. Yep, I feel that. Um, what signs do you pay attention to now that you used to ignore?
Actions. Your mouth can say a lot, but your actions are going to show me what you really mean. You cannot tell me you love me and then turn around and say, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you." If you knew it hurt me, it was going to you're going to have a sense of who I am. So if you have a sense of who I am and you know something is going to hurt me, to me that is not a mistake. You're intentionally trying to trigger me.
When I say that you just took me to a place with that response, because I remember vividly having a conversation about lies with, my ex, my now ex. And, I remember telling him, like, it doesn't matter what it is. Tell me what's up. And if you don't tell me what's up, when you need to, if I find out later on that you lied to me, then don't then turn around and tell me that you did it because um you didn't want to lose me, or you didn't
Mhm.
want to hurt me, rather. Don't tell me that you lied to me because you didn't want to hurt me, because if you didn't want to hurt me, then you would not have done the thing that you felt the need to lie about later on in the first place. You did it because
Yep.
you didn't want to lose me.
And you really did it to save your own actions and really to see how far that you can go. It was all about yourself. It's a lot of times when you're hurt and someone comes back to apologize, it's never apologize to you. It's damage control in order to keep you around.
Yeah, they want to see how much access they still have to you, if any. And then
Mhm.
when they realize that they don't have any, it's like you're all of a sudden the evil one, and why are you being so mean? Why are you treating them this way? And don't you know how to forgive people? And like, you can forgive people and not let them back into your space.
Hmm.
So, yeah. Um. Okay, so this one is really big for a lot of women. How do you tell the difference between intuition and a trauma response? Because those two can actually feel the same.
For me, intuition is something that sits in my spirit. A trauma response, like I can feel like, intuition is just like, something's not right. A trauma response would be me reacting how I would react in the past. Today's woman is silent.
Mm,
2 years ago's woman is screaming and yelling from the top of her lungs.
mm,
So I know when it's intuition, and then I know when it's okay. This is a trigger because someone else has done this repeatedly with the intent to harm you.
mhm, mhm.
And now this is just how you're reacting.
That's really good. Intuition is a gut thing, something that you feel in your stomach, and then the trauma response, it's a reaction.
Hmm.
um, and that's more emotional, um, and it can even be more mental, really. Because sometimes when you're reacting from a trauma response, you're doing the response is remembering. It's calling back to something that happened in the past, and you are reacting to the situation now based on what happened then.
Hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense. So, we are coming up on the end of the episode, but I do want to ask you, what feels harder about dating now, and what actually feels easier because of the work that you've done?
What feels harder now is finding someone that I actually like. What feels easier because it's just like one little flaw. I'm just like, take it home to somebody else. Go talk to your mama, your therapist. I don't care who it is. Just don't come over here with it. What's easier is actually being able to let go of things. Like when I first see something that I don't like, it's like it, it's kind of like it's like a bad thing, honestly, because it's like, how are you going to date anyone, because everyone has flaws, right? So
Hmm.
it's kind of like, once you do something that I'm not comfortable with, like I said, I'll ask you the first time, and then it might have turned me off the first time. Honestly, I'm just probably telling you just to be telling you at this point.
Yeah,
And it's easier for me to just say, this isn't going to work for me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
When
yeah.
before I would have
Yeah.
said, he's a good man, Savannah, find the good in him.
I was
No.
waiting to exhale. That is hilarious. No, but you're right though. I think that a lot of times it's like I said earlier about overreacting. It's like you see one little thing, one little flaw, and it's like he automatically gives you the everlasting ick, and you can't do nothing about it.
Can't shake it. It's just like, and then you see something later, or you see somebody, you'll see somebody who's taking them serious and things like that. And you're like, well, better you than me.
Right? Good luck with that.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, you kind of just brace yourself for like meeting the right person. And
Yeah.
you're never really going to meet the right person because everyone has flaws. It's like it's like a toilet. Everyone uses it. You just got to find who you're willing to pull up with, you know?
Which one you sit on the most comfortable?
Yeah, like, because it's just kind of like,
No, but yeah, I mean, I agree that there's no such thing as the right person, but I do think that there is the right one for you. And there may be multiple right ones for you. You just never, you don't really know. But
okay.
No, but I feel you. I totally understand what you're saying. Um, so before we wrap up, I want to ask you something that I think every woman listening, needs to hear another woman say out loud. So, what's one boundary or standard you refuse to bend on now?
Do not, do not shrink yourself. As I started off with, do not shrink yourself. You deserve to be seen. Adjust your crown and be seen. You are meant to be seen. Do not shrink yourself. I will not bend on that boundary.
You said that with your whole chest.
Listen.
That wasn't just the woman speaking. That was the confidence coach and
Yeah.
and the crisis
Listen.
counselor. All of that coming out at once. Like I love it so much. Um, and finally, what does dating from a healed or healed version of you look like today? Not perfect, not finished, just honest.
Um, from a healed version of me, what do these young kids say? I stand on business now, okay? So there's no playing around over here. I stand on business. I command what I want. I want respect. I want love. I want loyalty. I want long lasting. I want affection. And if you cannot bring that to this table, then you can remove yourself because technically I probably brought the table.
Okay, listen. That's a whole nother listen. You about to start something in me, cause Lord knows I can't stand that. What do you bring to the table? Don't ask a woman what she brings to the table when you ain't got no place to put it.
No, listen, yes, listen. This is about me loving me this time around. And your love is additional, but it's not a requirement, honey.
Ooh, facts. I love that so much. Thank you, Nicole, for bringing your truth into this space today. Dating after damage is not simple and it's not quick. It's a whole transition within itself, and conversations like this remind us that healing does not disqualify us from love. It just shapes how we love moving forward. So, Nicole, before we close out, I want to make sure people know how to stay connected with you beyond today. So, for the women who are listening today who felt seen by your story, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at her inner underscore power and as well as TikTok.
Okay, okay. And what do you have coming up that people might want to know about? Any programs, workshops, ways they can work with you? Anything you're excited about that you want to put out there on their radar?
Okay, so right now I am working on something called the Com Lab. And the Com Lab where I'm actually working on a website for, and this is geared towards women and men's healing. It has not yet launched. And basically you can buy products to help track your anger, anxiety, 30-day journals, things just to keep your nervous system intact when you go through these different times with I'm not even going to say different times when you go through these aspects of life because we will all face them.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you again for being here and being honest with us today. It was a pleasure. And we will talk about doing this again because clearly my life has been missing this kind of energy on this here podcast. So thank you again for joining me today.
No problem. And I wish you all of the success and luck. And remember, don't shrink yourself. You deserve to be seen. And what you are doing is amazing. A lot of women need it. And some women have a fear of going to counseling. And although it does, this is just as effective without the therapeutic part.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much for that. I really, that's very affirming to me, and that that's kind of the goal, to not necessarily replace therapy or counseling or anything like that, but just to give women the opportunity and the space to know that we all go through human things, and we're all out here struggling and doing the best we can. And I just want to do my part in helping people feel seen. So thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it.
You are so very welcome.
All right, Nicole, and everyone listening, thank you all for listening to the Messy Middle today. I am your host, Jamila, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.
Bye bye.